The government warns schools against infiltration by unlawful societies. Dozens of vehicles were damaged in an arson case at a Zhengguanou car park. And Donald Trump accuses China of trying to meddle in the US election. Good evening. The Education Bureau issued a letter to all secondary schools telling them how to prevent infiltration by unlawful societies. Caleb Leung has the details.
The Education Bureau issued a letter to all secondary schools alerting them that the Hong Kong National Party has been outlawed since Monday. The letter reminds school administrators not to provide premises or facilities to any unlawful societies or their members for hosting any functions. Schools should also take measures to prevent their students from joining any such societies or taking part in their activities. School principals and teachers should provide guidance to students who hold any erroneous and extreme concepts, adding that their parents should be alerted. Meanwhile, Zhang Xiaoming, director of the State Council's Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office, agreed with the SAR government's decision to outlaw the Hong Kong National Party. That's according to a Hong Kong delegation of professionals and business executives who met Zhang in Beijing this morning. Zhang reiterated his opposition against Hong Kong independence, saying it has nothing to do with freedom of speech. Caleb Leung, TVB News.
More than 50 vehicles were damaged after a car park in Zhengguanou went ablaze. 3 people were arrested, and police say the case may be triad-related. Caleb Leung again.
Flames and explosions. A fire broke out at around 5 a.m. on the second floor of this multi-story car park at King Lam Estate in Zhengguanou. Firefighters rushed to the scene and put out the blaze at around 6:40 a.m. Dozens of vehicles were severely damaged. Sources say an initial investigation found the fire may be triad-related, with one vehicle at the car park being the target. Police are treating the case as arson. Officers are helping car owners to claim back their vehicles. The car park has 312 parking spaces. It is owned by Link REIT and managed by Wilson Parking. Some car owners are worried they will not receive any compensation as they have never signed a lease for their parking spots. Paul Law of the International Professional Insurance Consulting Association says drivers who only purchase third-party liability insurance will not receive any compensation in this case. However, car owners may still be compensated if there is proof of negligence on the part of the car park owner or the management company. Examples include security guards leaving their posts and failing to notify anyone about the fire. Link REIT says the car park is regularly patrolled by security guards and fire protection equipment is regularly inspected. Caleb Leung, TVB News.
The British Airways Hong Kong International Cabin Crew Association says more than 80 flight attendants will lose their jobs when its local base closes next month. Unionists quote the airline saying the closure is related to costs and productivity issues. More than 50 flight attendants were reportedly laid off immediately, while some 20 others are required to leave before their contracts expire. The MTR Corporation remains optimistic about healthy passenger numbers for the high-speed rail network. This despite a failure to meet the projected target of 80,000 people per day. Sharon Tang reports.
MTRC officials described the first few days of operations as generally smooth. Still, they asked the public for more patience.
In any new rail network, it takes time for people to get to understand and to use the new service. So there's usually some build-up, time for a network to be fully utilized.
The corporation has unveiled some encouraging figures. Up until yesterday, the Rail Link's Hong Kong section has carried up to 160,000 passengers since Sunday's opening. Nearly 300,000 tickets were sold for journeys within 30 days. More people are expected to use the railway during the Golden Week holiday next week. Still, many tourists are upset there are only 5 counters which deal with tickets ordered on mainland official websites. This woman says traveling to Hong Kong only takes 10 minutes, but it takes double the time for her to queue and collect her tickets. To alleviate the situation, the MTRC says it has already asked for more counters from China Railways.
We further discuss with them whether they can transplant some of the ticket collecting machine to Hong Kong. So they are committed to do so.
Adding to the passenger confusion were regulations governing the size of luggage one can bring on the train. I came all the way from Shenzhen with this. How am I supposed to know there are restrictions here? This woman said. Although station staff can provide extra bags for travelers, some left their oversized luggage behind. The MTRC says they will keep the oversized luggage for 30 days and reminded owners to take them back. Sharon Tang, TVB News.
The 5-month consultation over the 18 land supply options came to an end today. Christy Leung has details.
Developing private farmland and the public-private partnerships was one of the 18 options which has aroused hot debate during the consultation period. Real estate developers voiced their support today.
We have existing well-tried and tested systems that have been used in the past, back in the 70s, formation of new towns and so forth. And these are practices that are well understood by both the administration and by the industry practitioners.
There are suggestions to form a public-private partnership authority to oversee the land conversion process, thus aim to allay public fears of collusion between the government and private developers. But the association disagreed.
If you're going to create a new system, obviously we all step slightly into the unknown, and we don't know how long that will take, what the teething troubles will be.
Under the public-private partnership approach, infrastructure facilities will be built with public funds, while private developers are committed to build a certain portion of affordable housing. The Real Estate Developers Association argued developers are not given any advantages, as they also have to pay land premiums. Given the complex ownership over brownfield sites in the new territories, the association said the government should take the initiative to negotiate with stakeholders. Meanwhile, the association has also urged the government to introduce a higher plot ratio for housing projects in new development areas to better utilize land in the new territories. Christy Leung, TVB News.
Turning overseas, US President Donald Trump accused China of trying to meddle in the November 6th US congressional elections. Speaking at a UN Security Council meeting, Trump says Beijing does not want his Republican Party to do well because of his stance on trade. Trump did not provide any evidence for the allegation, and Beijing did not immediately respond to the remarks. Meanwhile, Trump had harsh words against globalization, the liberal trading order and Iran's nuclear ambitions in his annual speech at the UN General Assembly. Tony Sabine reports.
An address by the President of the United States to the United Nations General Assembly always commands an audience, even if the American leader is late to the podium. So, despite Donald Trump's late arrival, delegates were all ears. But perhaps the president shouldn't have been surprised he might turn himself into a figure of mockery when he started boasting his administration had achieved more than any other in history, a claim which left the audience in stitches.
In less than 2 years, my administration has accomplished more than almost any administration in the history of our country. America's so true. Didn't expect that reaction, but that's okay.
Laughter aside, Trump was serious when he took aim at globalization, saying the world trading system needs urgent reform.
Many nations in this hall will agree that the world trading system is in dire need of change. For example, countries were admitted to the World Trade Organization that violate every single principle on which the organization is based.
Among the offenders Trump singled out, China.
The United States has just announced tariffs on another $200 billion in Chinese-made goods, for a total so far of $250 billion. I have great respect and affection for my friend, President Xi, but I have made clear our trade imbalance is just not acceptable.
Trump's address included a message of gratitude to North Korea's Kim Jong-un in working towards peace on the Korean peninsula, a remarkable moment given the president had threatened Pyongyang with destruction in last year's speech.
I would like to thank Chairman Kim for his courage and for the steps he has taken, though much work remains to be done. The sanctions will stay in place until denuclearization occurs.
In contrast, Trump denounced Iran and asked the world to join the US in isolating it over its actions in Yemen and Syria, while reminding delegates of Tehran's nuclear ambitions.
We cannot allow the world's leading sponsor of terrorism to possess the planet's most dangerous weapons. We ask all nations to isolate Iran's regime as long as its aggression continues.
Tony Sabine, TVB News.
A third woman has just come forward with sexual misconduct allegations against Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh. Trump called the sexual assault charges a con game being played by the Democrats. Alan Buckner reports.
Ford, a university professor in California, accuses Kavanaugh of molesting her when he was drunk at a high school party in 1982. But U.S. President Donald Trump is doubling down on his defense of Kavanaugh.
I think he's just a wonderful human being. I mean, I think it's horrible what the Democrats have done. It's a con game they're playing. They're really con artists.
Meanwhile, a second accuser, Debbie Ramirez, said Kavanaugh exposed himself to her at a drunken dormitory party at Yale the following school year. But she admits she'd been drinking and her memory has gaps.
The second accuser has nothing. The second accuser doesn't even know. She thinks maybe it could have been him, maybe not. She admits that she was drunk. She admits time lapses.
Kavanaugh denies both allegations. The Senate Judiciary Committee is scheduled to vote on Kavanaugh's nomination Thursday and the full Senate next Tuesday. It's unclear if Blasey Ford's testimony can sway the Republicans' razor-thin majority.
There's nothing that has actually happened yet. There's been a lot of accusations that has changed my feelings about my positive feelings about him. But you know, again, the hearing process is not complete.
Meanwhile, Republicans announced Arizona prosecutor Rachel Mitchell will handle the questioning of Ford. All 11 Republicans on the committee are men. Alan Buckner, TVB News.
Former actor and comedian Bill Cosby was sentenced to 3 to 10 years in prison for sexually abusing a woman. Once lauded as America's dad, Cosby is now considered a sexually violent predator. Sonia Altero has more.
81-year-old Cosby, who is now legally blind and uses a cane, was led out of the court in handcuffs. It's a shocking fall from grace for a man who broke racial barriers and cemented his family man reputation by playing the lovable Dr. Cliff Huxtable in the 1980s TV comedy The Cosby Show. That's how he got away with sexually abusing women for 5 decades, claims the prosecutor.